Welcome guys to my YouTube channel. My name is Joshua and today I will be telling you some common abbreviations that are used in Canadian immigration. And sometimes you just need to do this thing so that you don't get lost when you hear people talking about, oh, I had an EDR, or I've gotten an ITA, or I'm in AVO or OVO. So I don't want you to get lost hearing this slang. So I want to just tell you about what some of these abbreviations mean. Alright, so stick with me. The first abbreviation I'll be talking about is ADR. What is ADR? ADR means additional details required. Now, additional details required means that whatever information you've provided in your application was not sufficient for whoever is reviewing, the officer reviewing your case, to make a decision, right? So sometimes it could be, in my case, I had an ADR because my 10 years history was not, there was a little gap. So it could be that there was a gap in your 10 years history. It could be that the job reference you've provided, the officer was not convinced enough. Maybe you provided a job reference without space stops and all of that. So for any reason, but whatever the reason would be stated in your ADR. So you would know what exactly the additional details that is being required. The next one is AOR. AOR means acknowledgement of receipt. Now you get this within 24 hours or immediately after you submit. It just means that they have received your application. That's your express entry application. So this means that you've paid what you need to pay, you've uploaded the documents you need to upload, and then you've submitted. So AOR, acknowledgement of receipt. The next thing is AVO. AVO is Accra Visa Office. Now, Visa Office, basically, Accra Visa Office is the visa office in Accra. Canadian Visa Office in Accra. So basically, they deal with, most times, anything that has to do with spousal sponsorships and all of that usually goes to Accra. So, and a lot of comments about Accra Visa Office. I don't think I have the authority to make any judgment on Accra Visa Office, but the meanings of Accra Visa Office, basically, after your files are being reviewed, to be dispatched to a visa office. So Accra is just one of the visa offices. BDEC. BDEC is the next one. BDEC means background decision. Now, usually after you submit your application, there will be different stages. There will be some background checks, there will be criminality checks and all of that. So background decision basically talks about the decision they've made on your background check. Are you suitable? Are you eligible? And all of that. Next is BIL. BIL means biometrics instruction letter. Now, biometrics instruction letter is that letter you get that tells you, okay, you can go for biometrics now. So this usually happens sometimes after medicals have been passed or sometimes before. But usually you get a biometric instruction letter and you have 30 days for you to go to the visa office, to a visa office or VFS, to provide your biometrics. Okay. The next one is CHC. CHC means Canadian High Commission. Now, Canadian High Commission literally refers to Canadian embassies, Canadian consulates, Canadian visa offices generally. Now, the next one is CIC. CIC means Citizenship and Immigration Canada. This is the umbrella body that kind of governs CHC, that's the Canadian High Commission, and even governs CIO. All right. So the next then will be CIO. So CIO means Centralized Intake Office. I think it's in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Right, so that is where you send your application. Also, when you're providing your job reference, that's the address you would usually put in your reference letter. So if you don't know what your job reference is, you should check my video on documents required for express entry. I provided a sample of a job reference, and you would see there that the address, it is addressed to Centralized Intake Office. So CIO, Centralized Intake Office. The next abbreviation is COPR. COPR is Confirmation of Permanent Residence. Usually you will get 2 copies when you get your visa. You get 2 copies of COPR. On arriving Canada, 1 copy will be kept by the immigration officer, and then you have 1. All right. It's a very important document because you won't get your permanent residence card immediately. Right? It might take sometimes weeks, sometimes months before you get your PR card. Your COPA is very important. I was speaking with an immigration officer 2 weeks ago, and she mentioned that even after getting your PR card, your COPR is still very important. So make sure you keep it and make sure it is well taken care of. It's just like a sheet of paper, gives details of your immigration basically. The next is CRS. What is CRS? CRS is comprehensive ranking system, and I know most of you already know CRS. I did a video on how to compute CRS, so if you have not seen that, you should check the video on how you can calculate your CRS. CRS is just the system the Canadian government, the immigration system here, uses to judge whether you're sufficiently qualified to get an invitation to apply or to come over to Canada. So it usually uses different parameters to give you a score. Parameters such as education, your language skill, your work experience, and so on and so forth. All right. The next one is DD. DD, demand draft. Now, demand draft is just a means of payment, basically your bank draft, really. Remember, you make some payments in the course of your journey, right? So demand draft is just one of the means of making payments. Sometimes credit card could be used, sometimes demand draft, sometimes debit card, and so on and so forth. Next abbreviation will be ECA. What is ECA? ECA means Education Credential Assessment. Now, this is how you assess all the credentials you get outside Canada, to assess it and mark it as an equivalent Canadian degree. All right, I did a video on ECA. If you have not seen it, you should take out time to watch it. It's very, very enlightening. All right, so ECA, Education Credential Assessment, it assesses your degree, whatever degree you got outside Canada. It assesses it and gives a report on its Canadian equivalence. All right, the next one is EE. EE means express entry. I'm sure almost everybody knows express entry, right? It is one of the categories of immigration in which you are required to create a profile, provide some documents, and then you could have federal skilled worker scheme there, you could have federal skilled trade, and so on and so forth. Next one is EOI. EOI means what? Expression of interest. Now, this is common with those who are going for provincial nominee program. All right, so you need to, in those cases, you need to provide an expression of interest that you're interested in that province, you want to apply to that province, so that anytime they have a draw, they will consider you for their nomination. The next one is FD. FD means fixed deposit. Now, if you've watched my video on documentation, I talked about proof of fund, and I said that one of the ways you can actually show your proof of fund is putting your money in fixed deposit. So if you hear FD, it means fixed deposit. So you could have your proof of fund as fixed deposit, as treasury bill, and some people use 25% of their pension fund, and so on and so forth. The next one is FSW. FSW means Federal Skilled Worker. Now, this is an immigration category, right? This is an immigration program that allows people to come over to Canada and get permanent residence based on their skilled experience. The next one I'll talk about is GCMS. GCMS means Global Case Management System. Now, GCMS is like a report you get. GCMS is like a report you get that kind of gives a breakdown or a detailed report, a detailed account of the status of your application. So sometimes when your application is taking longer than supposed and you want to know what is happening, estimate, Canadian government will tell you 6 months is the estimate processing time, average processing time. Sometimes it can take longer than 6 months, right? In my case, I think I took 6 months and 2 weeks. So when you're not very sure, when you're not comfortable with a timeline, you sometimes want to order a GCMS note at a cost, right? You can offer a GCMS note to tell you a detailed analysis or breakdown of the status of your report. An alternative to GCMS is what is called CSE. CSE means Case Specific Inquiry. CSE is free. You just raise like an inquiry with immigration on the immigration website, and then they provide you a response. But people usually go for GCMS, which is paid for, usually because it gives a more detailed breakdown. All right, and it's at a cost. I ordered GCMS at a point, but I didn't get it until after I'd already gotten PPR, so it was not useful for me. All right, the next one I will talk to is ICES. ICES means International Credential Evaluation Service. International Credential Evaluation Service. This is one of the designated bodies that gives out ECA report. Remember, we said ECA means Educational Credential Assessment. Those assessment reports are provided by different body, and ICES is one of them. All right, most of us know WES. WES is the common one, but apart from WES, there are other designated institutions or bodies that also provide evaluation credential assessment, and one of them is ICES, International Credential Evaluation Service. The next one we'll talk about is IMMCAT, IMCAT. IMCAT means immigration category. Now, there are different categories of immigration, right? You agree with me? There's Federal Skilled Worker, there's PMP, there's CEC, that's Canadian Experience Class, and so on and so forth. So whichever category, IMCAT is just used as a broad word, as a family word to talk about immigration category. Next, I'll talk about IQAS, IQAS. IQAS, that's IQAS. IQAS means International Qualifications Assessment Service. This is also a body that provides ECA reports. In fact, most times it is advisable for lawyers to use IQAS instead of WES, because it is believed that while WES would assess your law degree as a normal bachelor, IQAS will assess it as a professional degree, which then makes it equal to a master's. So if you're a lawyer and you're watching this video, it's advisable for you to go with IQAS instead of WES. The next is ITA. ITA means invitation to apply. Of course, this is the point where the Canadian government sends you an invitation for you to submit your immigration application. All right, this means that you're already in the pool. You're already in the immigration pool. You've already created an express entry profile. All right, if you don't know how to create an express entry profile, I've already done a video on express entry profile creation. Check the link in the description and you'll get a guidance on how to go about this. The next I'll talk about is JD. JD is job description. Now, job description is what job description is. I'm sure everybody knows what job description is. It basically talks about what you do in your profession or in your career. Now, an advice is that when you are creating your job description, make sure your job description is very close to whatever your NOC is. What is NOC? Okay, I'll get to NOC. NOC is National Occupational Classification. All right, make sure your job description in your reference letter, right? That's a reference you're providing for your work experience. Make sure your job description matches whatever description is in your National Occupation Classification that you're going with. The next is MCC. MCC means Medical Council of Canada. Now, for medical doctors, you don't use WES for your ECA reports, right? You use MCC. MCC is Medical Council of Canada. The next is MEP. MEP means Medical Examination Passed. Now, that means that your medical examination report is fine and you're okay medically to come to Canada. The next is MI. MI is Ministerial Instructions. Now, Ministerial Instructions simply means the legislation or the law or the act that supports the immigration process, the immigration program. All right, the next is MR. MR is medical request. Of course, medical request speaks to the need or the requirement for your medical examination. Now, the next is NOC, means National Occupation Classification. Now, the Canadian government uses the taxonomy to classify different professions into different classes. All right, so for example, accountants, there's a class, there's an NOC, it's a code, right? There's an NOC, it's classified into different groups. There's skill level A, B, C, D, and then O. So I'll do a video on NOC soon, but understand it is just classification for occupation. The next is OVO. OVO means Ottawa Visa Office. Remember we mentioned AVO before, Accra Visa Office. So this OVO, this is a visa office in Ottawa. It's also one of the visa offices that processes immigration applications. The next is PA. PA means Principal Applicant. Now, Principal Applicant is the principal person that is applying for immigration. Now, so for example, let's say it's a family of 3, husband, wife, and child. If the husband is the principal applicant, then the husband is the one that requires to submit most documentations, right? If the wife is the principal applicant, then the wife requires more documentation compared to the other applicant. So the principal applicant is the main person who is putting up the application. All right. The next is PCC. PCC is police clearance certificate. PCC, police clearance certificate. This is just a certificate that gives the Canadian government an indication whether you might be inadmissible to Canada, right? It basically talks about your criminality record. All right. The next is PMP. PMP is Provincial Nominee Program. This is an immigration program in which provinces, right, provide nomination to applicants. So in these cases, you apply directly to the different provinces. I'm still going to do a number of videos on PMP. So if you're yet to subscribe, please stick around. And it's usually for those who don't have enough CRS score. So if you're thinking, okay, my CRS score is low, I don't have a master's or what have you, and you're looking to still come to Canada, PMP might just be the right program for you. So if you're yet to subscribe, please subscribe and also stick around so that you would see these videos when they come up. The next is POF. POF means proof of fund. Now this is the amount of funds that you're expected to have for you to come into Canada. The amount varies based on the number of persons you're expecting to come with to Canada. If it's one person, I think it's about 12,900 Canadian dollars, and then the amount increases as the number of applicants increase. I did a video on the cost estimate required, and in that video I also shared how much you need as proof of fund. All right, the next we'll talk about is PPR. PPR is passport request. For people who are applying to Canada, they call that meal the golden meal. It's like one of the biggest news you can hear. It means that your application has been reviewed, your application has been approved, and you are now requested to bring your passports for stamping. All right. So after you get PPR report, you usually have to go to the visa office, the VFS, and then submit your passport. The next is PR. PR is permanent residence. Permanent residency or permanent residence. All right. This is that document or that card that allows you to live in Canada permanently. All right. The next is RBVO. RBVO means received by visa office. This means that your application has been received, has been sent to a visa office for review. ROI is round of invitation. This is the periodic draws in which ITAs, that's invitation to apply, ITAs are sent out. All right. So what happens in ROI is there's a draw. When a draw is done, a CRS cutoff point is fixed, and then anybody that has from that CRS point and above gets an invitation to apply, and those that do not get will remain in the pool. The next is RPRF. RPRF is right of permanent residence fee. Now, right of permanent residence fee is an amount you pay at the point of either submitting your application or after your application has been approved. If you checked my previous video on the cost estimate required for processing Canadian immigration, you would also see how much that is. All right. The next is UCI. UCI is Unique Client Identifier. It's like an 8-digit number usually that you would see after you submit your application. VO is the next one, and VO means visa office. All right. Visa office replies to any of the offices where your visa is being processed or your application is being reviewed. Just like we've seen Accra Visa Office, we've seen Ottawa Visa Office, there's Sydney Visa Office, there's London Visa Office, and so on and so forth. All right, the last one I will talk about is WES. WES is WES. WES is World Education Service. This is one of the designated body that can issue out education credential assessment report, and it is also one of the most popularly used bodies for ECA reports. All right, so that would be all for you. Do you think I've missed out on anything? If you think I've missed out on any of the abbreviations, please drop such in the comment box so that nobody misses out. And if you have any question whatsoever on your immigration process, I'll be happy to answer them. Drop them in the question box, and If you're yet to subscribe, please, I am begging you, please subscribe, click the notification bell, like my video, and also share with your friends, family, and folks. Thank you for your time. Bye bye.